Your 2025 investing hacks. We have got Linus Field back in the hot seat, a KiwiSaver advisor from Generate KiwiSaver scheme. Mate, good to have you back.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me back, mate. I know you've had Jake in between, you've had Nathan. So good to do the rodeo again.
It's all been happening. I was going to say, welcome to the new year, which we should for the listeners out there.
Yeah.
However, we are recording in December, mate. We're probably a couple of the only blokes left in the country that are doing any work.
Maybe. Yeah, we've got our Christmas conference tomorrow. I'll be on my emails, across the Christmas. I'm sure you will be too. So
I keep an eye on them. But normally things are pretty quiet for me, which is good. But,
definitely.
You've put together a list of some different things that people can be thinking about to get their investing going and snowballing, or even started for some people in 2025. You've seen some of the things that I've been talking about in terms of the 12 days of Keep the Change Christmas.
Good post.
To get people thinking. So that's the idea, is to help people, understand what they could be doing better, or just have a bit of a reminder about some of these things. So maybe you could start us off with your tale about putting $7,000 into an investment at birth, and then how much that can turn into, which I'm sure would trigger a whole heap of people that would say, how could you have $7,000 at the start?
And this is coming from me as a parent. So I had this kind of deliberation of, I want to set up my son just as best as I can. And just doing some research, if you're basically using a 2% inflation level, $7,000 day one, first day on earth. And if you compound that $7,000 at 10% for 65 years, in today's terms, it gives you $1 million.
Wow.
$1 million at retirement. So I think without inflation, it's over 3 million. It's pretty impressive what it can do. But
that's without contributing anything. It's just putting the $7,000 in.
One lump sum and forget about it for 6 decades almost, or almost 7 decades. So, and I mean, in between then, they can maybe use it for their first home, and they'll have maybe a decent chunk at maybe in their mid 20s or early 30s. So there may be some, some disturbance between that 65 years. But it's like that magical figure of people thinking of the $1 million at retirement, and $1 million in today's terms, that gets you by. If you're mortgage free at 65, that will give you a decent living. If you're 65, if you live until late 90s kind of thing, it's a pretty good target to reach.
It's amazing how simple that could be, but then how unrealistic a lot of people would think that would be, right? However, I've seen what people pay for prams for getting their children sorted, and you've probably lived through it.
Yep.
And maybe we need to be asking our grandparents for a contribution to that fund and say, this is what we're trying to do for them.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think it's we also have that debate of a lot of parents asking, is KiwiSaver the avenue to go down for my kids, or is it managed funds as such? And I think the deliberation we have is, if you were to do whatever it could be, even starting with 1,000 is terrific, 1,005. If it was KiwiSaver, by the time that kid maybe gets to 18, 20, mid-20s, depending on how the property market goes, they just might be completely priced out of the market. And so that KiwiSaver, what parents have, that money that they've put into that account, it will still be for retirement, which is terrific. You're still setting up your kid for when they're 65. But if they're completely priced out of the property market, they might not be able to use that KiwiSaver. So for clients, they might look at managed funds alternatively. So this is where parents, similarly, you can just put in a lump sum, perhaps 1,000, 5,000, whatever you can afford. It's going to be invested in a very similar way to KiwiSaver, really similar performance figures. And then when that kid gets to 18 and the property market's not looking too fab, then the parents could be like, okay, managed fund, because it's in managed funds, we actually have access to that money. So, okay, let's use it to pay off maybe some university fees, or we could buy your first car with it, perhaps. But if they get to 18 and say, yep, I want to buy a first home, the market's looking pretty good, then parents, what they might want to do is, I don't want my kid to touch this money. So great, I'll take it from the managed fund, put it into KiwiSaver at 18, and then it's at least locked away. Because hopefully the kids have some built-in resistance. They're happy to leave it alone, but they might be big spenders. You never know. So KiwiSaver provides that lock-in.
Well, I saw maybe earlier in the year where I think it was Bill Ackman in the States was talking about this, and maybe giving each child that's born in America $7,000 and letting it compound for about 65 years. But I also saw someone said that if you don't have $7,000 available, Daniels, I don't know their first name, said you could invest $3,000 initially, deposit $200 a month for 20 years, and then let your child take over their own contributions from the age of 20 to 45, by 45, they'll have $1 million.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely, yeah.
I think there's so many ways to skin, how do we get to the $1 million, right? But I think, a lot of us go, that's unattainable. But as always, as you guys advise and talk about, the sooner you get started, then we can use compounding for longer, right? And that's probably the bit that trips up most people, is that they're not thinking about this soon enough.
Yeah.
And then we're doing the calculations going, how does this work? But a lot of these are based on get going nice and early.
Yeah, very much so. Really. And I think in finance, we commonly talk about making an informed decision. Rightly so. Do your due diligence, do your research when you're basically committing, whether it's life insurance or KiwiSaver. It's a really important element, but frequently it can be a barrier. And we actually, what I'd say is probably prioritize the value of a timely decision, not putting it off and actually committing to pursuing that option. I see it frequently where I've got a client, they've been with a default for 10 years. They finally get to meet with an advisor with me. We do a quick half an hour session. We have found a solution for the problem or whatever they're looking to resolve. And then, I'm really busy. I go back to life. I've got family. I've got everything else. And what they've done for 10 years, which is never look at their KiwiSaver, they're in that habit. And then they just go back to doing that after the meeting. Yeah. So, and it can cost them tens of thousands. And a really good example, I'll kind of paint the picture here roughly. But let's say you're a 30-year-old, you've just bought your first home. Fantastic. You've used your KiwiSaver and maybe you're sitting in a conservative fund because most people, you want to keep it pretty steady in the build up to that withdrawal. But then in nick of no time, 5 years go by and you're still contributing. Let's say over that 5 years, you're now 35 years of age, you got 30K, but you're still in the conservative fund because you've been so busy, whatever else. Now, if they finally committed, as an example, because when you've got time on your side, people might want to consider the high risk funds. So let's say based on the 10-year averages with the Morningstar report, if at 35, this individual finally moved to the aggressive, the high risk fund, 30K compounded at that average, they'd be on track for just over 400K at 65. If they delayed it another year, so if they stayed in the conservative until 36 and still 35, they're on basically 20 grand, approximately 20 grand less at 65. So the logistics and literally changing a fund, if you want to stay with that provider, it is literally logging into the app for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, just making that change. If you're confident in that decision, that 1 minute could just give you tens of thousands of dollars back. That's a pretty good payoff in my mind, just spending that quick amount of time. But if you're not sure about making that jump, then you can still just meet with an advisor, it's no cost, no obligation review. We're just there to give you the info. And I still think half an hour for many, many tens of thousands long term, even if it's not 30 seconds, even half an hour just sitting down with someone, that's still a pretty good payoff, I think. So
that's someone who's used their KiwiSaver for their first time. So they're effectively going almost back to zero, I would imagine, and then they're slowly contributing. Yeah.
Yep. And then you just slowly build it back up. So when you withdraw, you take everything except for 1,000. So you leave just a small lump sum there, and then they're still employed, so they'll still contribute that 3% or whatever they're doing. So nationwide, an average balance is around 30. So that's why I use that for that example. And
I guess it's not just people who are, using their funds for a KiwiSaver, right? They might be jumping from employment to self-employment or a life change, right? And sometimes we don't then think about, okay, what's happening in the background with our finances that I need to be reviewing as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Self-employed, I think because some self-employed pay themselves a salary from their own business. So they're basically on PAYE with their own company. And I think when you're starting KiwiSaver for the first time, there's basically a 12-month compulsory period where you do have to contribute 3%. But because you're paying yourself, you actually have to commit to 6%, whereas most employees just do that 3% when they're first starting out. So I think there's that rule. It can be, yes, it's quite a big chunk to put in when you're first starting out. But there are ways to not necessarily go about it, but I've had clients who are self-employed. They've been on PAYE. They've just gone to their accountant and say, hey, can I just go on drawings for maybe 3 months or 6 months? During that period, that's when they start KiwiSaver. So they don't have to commit to 6%. They can just do a voluntary bank transfer. And then they can just do, as an example, $21 a week just to get that free cash from the government. They deposit $521 once a year. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's again, you get this info when you meet with an advisor. I think people just hear it from their mates or their colleagues, and they just trust that kind of intuition. But just sit down with someone, and even if you're self-employed, there's still some real good benefits to KiwiSaver. You don't have to put in a massive chunk. It can just be bank transfers when you want to.
Too many of us signed up to a KiwiSaver plan without much thought. And signing up is great, but if you've never got advice before, you could be missing out. Your KiwiSaver account could become one of your biggest assets over your lifetime. That's why getting expert advice early and ensuring you're in the right fund is so worthwhile. Generate have a team of KiwiSaver advisors available to help. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no obligation meeting. They can even come to you. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns. It's you that's got a good story, right, around one of the self-employed clients that you have who basically said, well, I won't be able to contribute because I'm not going to be earning too much because I'm getting started with a new venture. But they were missing the other part of it, right, is where is this fund being aimed at the moment?
Exactly. So yeah, they had been employed for a good chunk of their life, probably from 21 till 35. They had just started the new business. So they had some decent, I think they had about 50K just sitting in the account. And he just said, Linus, I cannot contribute another dollar. I'm just pumping every bit of money into the new company at the moment. So I don't really feel a review's necessary because I'm not contributing. And I said, literally the exact opposite. So I'm not using kind of fund averages here, but just as a go-to, if you had basically 50K, if you were to average, let's say 8%, again, compounded over 30 years, you get to just over $500,000 mark. If you're averaging instead of 10%, you get to around 872,000. So that's close to an extra 400K.
What's the time period, sorry?
30 years. 30 years. So yeah, he was 35. Yeah, 35 at that time. So I've got this guy who's sitting there being like, I don't think a review's necessary. And he wasn't actually in a fund producing 8%. He was in a cash fund.
Yeah.
So he was the averages are actually less than 8%.
Yeah.
But and now I'm sitting here saying this is still massively relevant. Like you have a potential of hundreds of thousands just by getting, again, just some quick advice. So for self-employed, I think we always encourage contributions just stay at a comfortable level. And honestly, that can be nothing at all. If you're just in a little bit of a financial pinch at the moment, whether it be a big business outgoings or whatever it might be, that is okay. But if you've still got a lump sum sitting there, you will be surprised how well it can grow. That's just getting with the right provider, the right fund, half an hour, and you'll be laughing at 65. And this is what I hold out for in this job. I'm hopefully going to be doing it for 3 decades.
Yeah.
And then hopefully these clients I meet with in their 20s, 30s, they're at 65 inviting me out on their boat and they're like, nah, thanks, Linus. Thanks for giving me that advice 3 decades ago. So that's what I'll hold out for.
Good man. And I guess with those people as well, you're showing them that even if they're automating in the small amount to ensure that they get the government contribution, so they're effectively getting $521 of their tax back.
Pretty much.
If they're setting up an automatic payment each week, so then they're not having to think about it. Because I think as well, we all think, we'll get to June and then go, I'll just put the $1,043, into KiwiSaver. But who's just got $1,000? Data would suggest that for a lot of us, it's just not actually the reality.
Definitely.
And that's why I think automation is so important, whether it's investing into, and that's, I think, why KiwiSaver is so simple, is to drag our money and to put it into it and it's done, right? And I guess, I always bang on about this, but the big telcos do it to us, the power companies do it, the government do it via PAYE, ACC do it, and then we're like, nah, I'll wait till the end of the year, I'll put my lump sum in there. And it's like, do you reckon? Do the IRD let you do that? Does your phone provider, your internet provider, your power, your water? They don't. They're like, pay it in installments.
I think you can only do it with rates, maybe. I think rates, you might get like a 2% discount if you do it as one lump sum. I think it might be something like that. But and I think I might get a bit technical here, but there's actually some real value in doing it more frequently rather than that lump sum once a year. Because if you're just doing that $1,000 lump sum, you're trying to basically time when the market's at a favorable price, not when it's at its peak, but maybe somewhere in between or even at its lowest is ideal. So it's and we just can't predict the markets. This classic disclaimer, past performance, never a guarantee. We never know exactly how things are going to track. So when you do it on a more regular basis, like an employee, you don't need to time the market. You just constantly, and I recommend weekly. Weekly is really good. Most banking apps you can't do it daily. That'd be quite a small deposit anyway. But yeah, weekly, it's going in automatically. So as the markets go up, as they come down, you are just automatically making those contributions. So you're automatically buying the assets at really good prices when we see those fluctuations. So we recommend weekly rather than yearly. For sure.
Okay. I love how, in your space, you guys have to say that past performance is not a guarantee of the future, etc. But if you listen but if you listen to any property podcast, they're basically like, well, if we look at the last, X amount of years, you could just about be certain that property will go up by 7.2%. They're basically allowed to use apparently history to justify that it will be increasing, whereas you guys aren't allowed to. So it's funny.
Not definitively, I think. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the most part, when you are looking at funds or investment options, whatever it might be, it is probably the closest metric that we do have to basically showing how good that provider's investment team is, how consistent the strategy has been. And KiwiSaver has been around for 16 years now.
Yeah.
We've gone through the ups. We have definitely gone through the downs. So we really feel we've got a really good data set now to provide some really good confidence. Again, it's not that guarantee, but we can be pretty sure in terms of how things progress. And it is long term. You're in KiwiSaver for your whole life. So it's not really like you don't want a one-hit wonder. You're going to be in there for multiple decades. So
but I do think it's important that people understand that stuff too, right? Because I do think that we're now moving into a time where over summer we're going to hear from people, nah, mate, like you should be getting out of your KiwiSaver, you should be selling because like S&P's at an all-time high.
Everyone's a genius, yeah.
And they've had 2 good years, they're due for a bad year and whatnot. And I think looking back to 2022, I believe the S&P was back, and then 2023 it's been roaring, 2024 it's been roaring, and so you're starting to have those prediction posts pop up and whatnot where it's like, oh, is it going to crash?
Yeah.
And all we have to see is a little bit of a pullback, and I think people go, right, I need to make a drastic decision. Rather than I need to keep calm and carry on.
Yeah. We've got Warren Buffett sitting on, I think, $350 billion of cash. I think it's the most he's,
I had one of those messages today.
Yeah.
So like it's happening out there. People are like, oh.
And he, funnily enough, predicts things really well. If you look at the last few corrections over 20 years. But absolutely. I think there's no guarantee. I think in terms of getting your information from a specialist or an advisor is going to be key. I jokingly see clients, basically, I might have a consultation with them saying, oh, I'm just going to get second opinion from my dad. And then it's a week goes by, I call them up and says, oh, my dad just doesn't think it might be a great move. Oh, brilliant. Like he has some background in investing. Now he's a plumber. Okay, cool. But he does investing himself. Now he doesn't have KiwiSaver, doesn't have anything. He just says it because of this scam, whatever. I haven't heard of the Generate, so whatever it might be. Yeah. So I think I would never trust my dad to do my electrics, to do my plumbing, to renovate my house, whatever it could be. So I think finance it should be the same. Actually get your information from tried and trusted sources. People have been doing this for decades and decades. And and this is what Generate's doing. Just have a chat. Just have a quick chat. It doesn't take long.
Well, you're not allowed to say things like this, but I can. I think a lot of us have got to take a step.
I'll just nod, I'll just nod.
A lot of us have got to take a step back and go, righto, why are we relying on our parents so much? And my parents will be listening and watching. This is not about you, but as a generalist type thing here, right? If we're relying on our parents, then we go, hang on, they're broke. Like, why am I asking them for financial advice? And that sounds really harsh, but it's interesting, I see similar sorts of things where people will go and ask somebody else that's not doing well, or like why they're skeptical about something. I'm like, why don't you go to the people who are making it happen and ask them, like, how do you make sense of this? And I guess the example I often use is that I'll have lunch with millionaires, and the first thing is not like, hey mate, what's going to happen when the banks crash? They never bring that shit up. But when people have got $3,000 in the bank, they're like, oh, the banks could go under. Have you? I'm not. And you're like, mate, like you're worrying about the wrong stuff here. Let's get bigger problems and look at people that have bigger problems too and understand how are they making sense of it.
No comment. No, I'm joking.
Man.
Absolutely. I think the one of the biggest things is when you don't have exposure to the markets, it's that analysis paralysis you've talked about. It's you just have that feel you have that lack of knowledge. So the decision becomes so huge for people. And I think as part of the New Year's resolutions people can make is basically getting your information from specialists. I think one really interesting thing is people, again, think financial advice is for the wealthy. It's not. So we're literally a testament to this. I've been doing this job for close to 7 years now. We've got advisors closing in on the decade. We've always done it no cost, no obligation. Rather, because I think people might research KiwiSaver. It's quite a minefield out there. There's maybe 30 odd providers. There's hundreds and hundreds of funds to choose from. So rather than jumping in the deep end, get some guidance from an advisor. When it comes to life insurance, most insurance brokers work off commission. They'll be happy to do that initial consultation kind of free of charge again, where you can just get the info, educate yourself that way. Mortgage brokers are probably the same, where again, it's just they get paid by the banks, that commission element. So they're happy. If you're not sure if you're close to buying a house or how far away you might be, they can see what you can get pre-approved of and kind of what you need to be targeting. So definitely, I think when you become educated, you really become empowered, and then you can really start making these decisions. And so the first step is just get that knowledge, get that information base.
I do think some people don't want to be told what they need to do because they know deep down that it's going to be hard for them, or they might get advice around amount to contribute or paying a loan off faster or whatever. And I've been sort of playing with this example this week where someone said to me about how they had bad credit, and they want to buy a house in the future. They couldn't explain how they had bad credit, what that even means. But their solution was, I'll borrow over $20,000 for a vehicle. I'll pay that down. That will fix my bad credit and prove to the bank that I'm good with debt. And then they might lend me money for a house. My brain doesn't work like that. It's if I want to buy a house, I'm going to go speak to a mortgage advisor. I'm going to speak to the bank.
Of course.
And be like, give me the data.
Before you do those decisions.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And look, they are adamant that they have absolutely nailed this path. But I think probably part of it will be a lack of education, but also a little bit of, I really want that vehicle. And so that's how I'm going to justify that I should buy that vehicle.
For sure.
But also, I'd say there'll be some, the credit score content that's just flying around on social media due to America and stuff like that. And then people pick that up and they go, okay, great, that's it. But man, all the time I'm trying to tell people, go to someone that's done it and ask them, how'd you do that? Can I have some of the lessons? Yeah. Or can you, listen to them? Can you speak to them? Can you interview them? Can you read articles by them and see what nuggets you can pick up?
And there's influencers out there that have no financial qualifications at all. And it's different markets as well. You'll see people in America who are saying, just get out this credit card, this specific loan. You can put a down payment of maybe 1% on a house, turn it into an Airbnb, and then you're on your way kind of thing. Yeah. That's not the same market in New Zealand. No. Right? And so definitely, I think there's definitely some great resources out there in terms of, I've got a few pages I follow on Instagram and Facebook, just in terms of updates with the stock market or whatever it be. I think when it comes to really making that decision, definitely qualified people who you need to speak to, just kind of not that, it's that rumor mill. It's not your dad, it's not your estranged cousin that you're catching up with at Christmas. So qualified people, way to go.
It's been an amazing year for markets in 2024. 2025 is yet to be seen. Let's find out how we go. I've seen predictions of another 20 plus year in the S&P 500 and all sorts. But maybe. One book that I read a number of years ago, over summer actually, was Unshakable by Tony Robbins. And I listened to it on audio, and it's a fascinating book. But there's a lot of data in there of basically, if you're trying to time the market or if you're not investing consistently, and if you are going to have someone tell you, there's been 2 good years, so you should take your money out. And it's phenomenal, and it's well researched. It's interviewed heaps of people. It's got statistics for Africa, and basically the summary is dollar cost average into the market weekly, like you say, and just keep rolling. But I do think that's a good resource for those people who might be looking for a book to get some data, if that's the way that they make decisions, to go, okay, how can I make myself unshakable as an investor? Because investing's too noisy not to have some of that base understanding. And a good example, I guess, at the moment is that if I post anything about a KiwiSaver fund, I'll get DMs like, "What's the fund? Can you find out from what the fund is?"
Saw those screenshots this week.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And I kind of say, it doesn't matter because it's historic. So, and it's them, it's their investment based on their risk profile. But I think that people assume it's that simplistic of basically there's always a best fund and I just need to continue to get into it.
Yeah.
But even, Unshakable will help you understand around stopping jumping between different things and stopping looking for quick wins and just focus on, there's even a whole chapter on what wealth actually is individually as a person and around gratitude and things like that, which people, will probably be surprised of being in a wealth book, but it's from people who have millions, hundreds of millions, billions. And that helps me, when I read a book like that and go, okay, they carried on investing in 2022 and it helped me invest in 2022, which was a down year in the S&P 500. And then, not kind of, when it started getting good in 2023, I'm not like, oh, okay, maybe I should, pull this back out because I would have missed 2024. But even my brain is still saying to me, oh, like maybe you could, something could be about to happen.
Yeah.
But what am I going to do if I have that cash anyway? I'm then just going to have to make decisions with that too. So it really did help me look at investing differently. So it might be something for people to chuck into their summer reading.
Very much so. Very much so. And I think the dollar cost averaging is massive. And I think what people can do to a degree if they then see these articles of an imminent crash, let's say as an example, they're maybe doing $200 a week into a managed fund or Sharesies or KiwiSaver, whatever it might be. If you think it might be an imminent crash, maybe just reduce those deposits to $100 or from 200 to 100. So you keep some cash to yourself. And then if markets do drop, then it's kind of, then I can pump it in at basically that better price, whatever it might be. So definitely just keep dollar cost averaging. It's still really worthwhile because we just don't know the direction. But everything you said, I agree with.
What about, mate, you've got on this list here, timing and even, delaying decisions by a year.
Yeah, so that was a client of mine. So it was basically the 30-year-old who had just bought a house. He was in the conservative fund, so basically he had just built up the account. He'd been pretty cautious in the build up on that side of things. And then at 35, it was just that kind of delay, that delay of decision, that one I mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
really.
I see.
So that is just where. And it's just those clients I referenced as well, where people, if they think they need to do research, doing research by yourself in a product that you've never been educated on, that you're not qualified in, it is so hard to navigate through. And so people go away, and I get so many people who I just never hear from again, which is really unfortunate. And I like all the best to them, but it's. People they think they can do the research and then they realize, oh my God, there's so much information out there. There's so many different perspectives, as you said. So I think the few boxes people can tick off in terms of making that commitment is that you just feel comfortable with the advisor, comfortable with the company ethics, and that they've got a really good long-term track record. And if you can kind of tick off those key boxes, that's a really good signal that you should be in a better position, hopefully, at least.
It's funny because people will try and learn, about investing or whatnot, which I get because it can be interesting, and we think that we're going to see some instant returns. But I had a guest recently who was like, but that then led to me, day trading, and then it led to me investing with leverage. And basically getting wiped out and, having to go all the way back to the start. Sure. And in that same time period, and now they've tidied themselves up, but basically in that same time period, you think, what could you have achieved if you didn't try and master that and instead you tried to master getting better at your job or getting better at your side hustle or your relationship or yourself or your health or your whatever, right? And investing into a skill that is going to be guaranteed to increase your income.
Yeah, very much so. And I think the probably general progression to, they probably skipped a few steps to the day trading part. So I think when people are thinking, how do I get involved in the share market? If they don't have that knowledge, maybe give it to a specialist to manage. So that's where managed funds might be that first step. I've seen how dollar cost averaging is working now, and I think I'm a bit more educated. I might want to go to Sharesies or Hatch or a stockbroker where you can maybe choose a couple companies yourself as opposed to generate the investment managers, us making the decisions for you, and then kind of go to those, those extremes. And I know people can do great in those on occasion, but they might be advertising. They might be that 1% who do incredibly well, and the majority, might struggle a fair bit.
Well, before we get out of here, mate, and wrap this one up, I think we have to give a shout out to our mate Nathan Field. Is he your dad? Yeah.
Nathan Field, we get the joke, and we look, we've got the same brunette hair, right?
You might have a bit more energy, a bit less of a calculator than he is. Shout out to Nathan if he's watching.
Oh my God, he's just phenomenal. Like he's cool, calculated. Like I see him in the office on occasion, but he's done an amazing result in the fund he's managing at the moment.
So that's the thematic fund. He talked about it on the podcast where he came on.
Yeah, thematic fund. So we kind of have our, so as an example, our KiwiSaver aggressive options called the focused growth. As of November, our 1 year returns were 28%. Well, I think it was 28.3. That was kind of net of fees. Nathan's thematic fund just did over 34%. It's kind of purely a stock market fund. I mean, he can explain it far better in that previous podcast. But amazing. And there, I mean, I'm pushing for Generate to introduce that as a KiwiSaver fund. We'll see. Yeah. But amazing option. And I think the S&P over that exact same 12-month period, the S&P 500's done 32% approximately. So this is where active managers can be beneficial. We're looking to outperform the market. And a thematic, it's not just America, it's diversified across the world. Yeah. So we've got an amazing investment team.
Nice. The human calculator.
Yeah,
well, I guess a disclaimer that these numbers can always change by the time that this content ends up being watched by people and whatnot. But when he did come on the podcast, I was pushing him for a stock, as an example, and he did throw out GoDaddy, and I believe it's up over 50% since he came on the podcast. So I might have to start hanging out with him a bit more. Yeah, he'd probably be bored by me, but
it's
he's a good bloke.
It's pretty cool. And I think to a degree, and this is where we have no jurisdiction and no advice, but like when you set up a KiwiSaver and manage funds with Generate, the actual login itself provides a huge amount of transparency. So you can actually literally go into the portfolio, see the exact shares that you're involved in, whether it's Microsoft, GoDaddy, Nvidia, whoever it might be. And to a degree, if you're just starting out in that kind of investing phase, you have that list of companies which an investment team believes is going to make good money over the next few years, and then clients can take inspiration and definitely do their own thing. But it's I mean, I'm part of the thematic fund myself. It's just good to see that list and just be like, oh, okay, let's do some additional research, and we get some good internal insights from him. It's good to work for Generate. Yeah, small work perks on that side.
Speaking of work perks, mate, what has been a highlight for you in 2024?
Ooh, good one. I think the highlights for me is we've kind of seen that turning point in the optimism. I'll probably expand on that. So I think because we had the massive crash in 2020, that was the first time in KiwiSaver, arguably, people saw an enormous drop. And it was that first like, oh my God, and people flurrying and rushing. And then we had 2022 with the inflation, Ukraine war, inflationary environment and high interest rates. And so we're kind of hitting our groove, and I've just seen clients really start to get educated on KiwiSaver because of those events in part. So I'm having some just amazing conversations with people. We've had a record-breaking year. I mean, just in terms of FUM increasing, we're at $6.5 billion under management now, which is really neat. But the main thing is that we're just continuing to educate, and it's just though it's probably the same as every other year, but I just when clients say, hey, you helped me into my first home, I'm now retiring comfortably, that is bloody fantastic. So the growth has been really good, and long may it continue.
Good on you, mate. I think, with this, just like investing, it all compounds as well, right? And we're probably starting to see some of the fruits of the decisions that people have made over the last couple of years, or even longer ago. Anything in 2025 that you're looking forward to?
Ooh.
Like the Warriors in Vegas or anything?
Let's see what Warren Buffett does. No.
Yeah.
Probably
I think do it on Christmas Day and surprise us all.
I've got a good friend going to the Warriors in Vegas. Yeah, nice. Very jealous. But now I think we'll hit the ground running. Generate, we're doing heaps of home shows next year. So whether it's the boat show, baby show,
nice.
Build NZ, the Auckland Home and Garden shows, Women's Expos, honestly, we're doing the lot. So definitely
you'll be at the Women's Expo again, right?
Come say hi. Yeah, I did the Wellington one
Yeah.
But
I read the reviews online. Massive. You've seen them?
I'm not falling for that one, but no. So come say hi. Absolutely, we love the home shows, and it's it's quite a funny conversation, especially at the baby show where we're sitting next to a stall selling prams, and they're like, "What are you guys doing here?" Do you have KiwiSaver? And they're like, "Yes, I do." And then they just have they did not expect to talk about KiwiSaver on that given day.
Nice.
And then we provide them with some massive value. So the home shows, looking forward to that next year.
See, I'd be booted out of those, I reckon, because I'd be saying, did you know that if you brought a second-hand pram instead of buying that one that you've just purchased, and if you invested that now, 65 years, it'd be worth $300,000. So effectively, that pram just cost you
done.
Maybe we could play with that.
Analysis. Right.
If people want to find you, mate, what's the best way to reach out to you? I've had people this year, so respect to you, mate, where they've said that they've used you for some help and some advice.
Amazing.
And they've been blown away, by your willingness to help and the education and the advice that you've given, mate. So well done.
Awesome feedback. No, much appreciated. So absolutely, just going on Generate KiwiSaver, the website, or Generate Wealth, it will lead you to the same page, and you can basically request to speak to an advisor. You can call the head office as well, just saying, hey, just spoke to Linus or heard Jake or Nathan on the podcast, and definitely put you in touch. So we've got over 30 advisors nationwide, pretty much in every major town and city. We can do Zoom meetings, we can do phone calls, so we will make it easy for you. Start that journey. I think KiwiSaver, most people have KiwiSaver like comparatively to like life insurance or maybe mortgages. Like you probably have a KiwiSaver, and it's just a great place to start your financial journey. And then leads on to better things. So give us a call.
How many meetings do you reckon you've done this year? How many people do you reckon you've met with?
Met with probably over 800. I'd maybe say,
That's
maybe more. So we're basically, I'm a glorified Uber driver. I'm just in my car going back and forth, cafe, someone's office, someone's house. So we make it pretty easy. So I think over the 12 months, I think we've had definitely over 15,000 people nationwide either change their provider from perhaps their bank or a default to join Generate, or they've joined us for the first time. So one of the fastest growing providers in the country. And
good man.
We'll do the same next year.
I love it. You're doing good work out there, mate. Thanks for coming in as always, and we'll catch up in the back end of 2025 and find out how you've got on.
Looking forward to it. Let's see what Warren Buffett does. Cheers, mate.